Hi, my name is David Raubach, and I want to thank you for joining the Cancer Project podcast today. We're really privileged to be able to talk to Leo, who is a 10-year-old boy and a cancer survivor. He was treated for bladder cancer when he was about 1 year old, and then we have his dad, James, here. And it's really an incredible story. At that point in time, 10 years ago, the United Kingdom didn't have a Proton Center, and so there were many kids who were diagnosed with cancer in England or Wales or Scotland who actually came to the United States for treatment. And at the Oklahoma Proton Center, we were treating about 50 kids a year from that part of the world for a variety of different tumors. And so it's really neat for us to see a success story and have Leo and his father James here. And so we're really excited to talk to them today about that experience 10 years ago, but also a little bit about what it means to be back here visiting the Proton Center and visiting Oklahoma City. So James and Leo, thank you guys so much for joining us today. So Leo, tell me, remind me again, you're 10 and you said you've got a birthday coming up here in a couple months.
Yeah. September.
When is it?
September the 10th.
September the 10th. Okay, so I'm September the 4th, so maybe we'll celebrate together. So tell me a little bit about where you're at in life right now. What do you like to do?
Oh, so because it's the summer, we in England we like to play cricket a lot.
Okay.
I'm like a nerd in cricket. I like play it literally nearly every day. But because we're in America, there's not really that much cricket going on. There's not really baseball because it's summer. So I'm not really playing them that much in America right now. But when I get home, I'll be playing it a lot.
So with cricket, and I'm not as familiar with cricket. I played a little bit as a kid. I had a friend whose dad grew up in India. And so when I was a kid, his dad would organize neighborhood cricket games for us. But I don't think that I know all the rules. So tell me a little bit about what you like most about cricket. What position do you like to play, or what part of cricket do you enjoy?
Well, I'm an all-rounding batter. So I bowl and bat. But I think that I'm only like a tiny bit better at batting, but because I open the batting, so I don't really get to bowl that much. But when I bowl, I'm like average a wicket a game, but when I bat, I average quite a few runs.
Do you? Okay, so what's the most runs that you've scored in an at-bat?
Oh, so because I'm only an under 11, well, I play a year up in cricket, so I'm in under 11s. You retire on 30, and I got 30 before. You've gotten to 30.
Okay,
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot of running and hitting.
Yeah.
And then do you like playing in the field?
Yeah, well, if you mean like playing in the field, like trying to stop them from getting runs.
Yes.
So you have to like if you catch the ball, they're out. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but you're more of a hitter.
I'm more of like if I'm fielding, I'm good at fielding, but I prefer batting and bowling.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, that's super fun. Well, I hope that you have a long and very successful cricket career. So do you root for England?
Yeah.
Then when they play international matches?
Yeah.
Have you gone to an international match?
No, but I've been to a women's game, England versus Pakistan, but it got called off for rain because it was 5 hours long because the rain stopped the play.
Okay. Well, that's super fun. And so when you're not doing cricket, you're probably in school right now too. So what's your favorite subject in school?
Oh, well, art is one of them.
Okay.
Sport, drama, music.
Okay. Well, that's great. So you're an artist. So you've got the musical side, the artistic side, the athletic side.
Yeah.
A man of many talents. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, and I know that you don't necessarily remember a lot of the specifics about the treatment that you went through.
No.
But is this the first time that you've been back in the United States since treatment 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm going to turn to your dad here a little bit just to kind of introduce what you went through a few years back, and then we can talk a little bit about what you saw today at the Proton Center. So James, Tell us a little bit about what ended up leading to you needing to come to Oklahoma City for treatment.
So it was the January of 2015. We were going to take Leo swimming for the first time. So we went to put him in a swimming nappy, and within his overnight nappy there was a little blood clot. Looked a bit like a bogey, but it was red. So we took him to the local MRU, and they thought it might be an infection, which is very rare in a young boy of that sort of age. And they gave him some antibiotics that ruined him, really. So after a few weeks, we kept pressing, and the doctor was good. He's saying, this is not right. We need to escalate this. And actually, it's a fairly traumatic sort of time. I was away working, and I got a phone call on the trip back. I was working with the ladies rugby team, and there was a doctor saying, look, we've scanned him. There's something that we're unsure about, and you need to go up to the local children's specialist hospital in Bristol. And we went the next day. And then some pretty dark days and places where no parents should really go came around. And Leo had an operation to just look inside the bladder, and then they gave us the news. Going on from there, it was all pretty quick. They were saying they came up with a protocol for him, which included chemotherapy. Should that not work, then it was escalated to surgery. And because of his age and the ability for his liver and kidneys to sort of get rid of toxins, which fundamentally chemo is, they couldn't overdose him and probably underdosed him. It's sort of speculation, really, but it didn't really have a great impact on his cancer. So they said, right, we're going to have to remove the bladder. So again, next escalated in regards to stress and everything. And they were tough times. He was in intensive care for a lot of that period, and it was up and down, and we were having phone calls to come in and all sorts of stuff. And then they started talking about a treatment called proton beam therapy in America. And initially they came up with two potential places, one being Jacksonville, Florida, one being Oklahoma. Now, we don't know much about Oklahoma.
Right. Yeah.
Back home in Jacksonville, obviously, Florida, Disney World, we were thinking, please be there.
Yep.
But they said, no, it's Oklahoma. And we're going, really? What more can we be taking here? But we were so wrong. It was just great to come out here. So we flew out here on the 3rd of July that year, went to our first Independence Day on the 4th. And then the journey started with the Procure Centre and at the Children's Hospital for sessions of chemo alongside, which was slightly more smooth than home. Because of the proton, they couldn't use a certain chemotherapy that made him very sick. So, it's a smoother process, but tended to make him require more blood transfusions. So Abby and myself were in and out of hospital without that, but throughout that. But we had great support. We had grandparents, two of her here today for the first month, just looking after us, looking after Hattie as well, because little Hattie was 3.5. We were at Procure every day or down at the hospital, so it could have been difficult, but we had such a great support network throughout the process. And obviously Procure was just an amazing sanctuary to go to, which gave 10 other families that were with us at the time from the UK, all with children being treated for cancer, schedules of events to go and do, meals out. It was, it started pretty dark and ended up a lot of light and confidence and hope going forward.
So I want to step back a little bit, and that's just an unbelievable story. And like you said, something that no parent or family should ever have to go through. So you talked about that first moment where there was the blood clot, I think is the way you described it. How old was he at that point?
Must be 4 months.
4 months old. And so then from that point, how long was it until you knew what the diagnosis was?
Quick. Within 2 weeks, I would have thought.
Okay, so very, very quickly after
Or maybe
that.
even quick. Well, no, the first couple of weeks they were trying things, normal things like antibiotics for potential infection. But they didn't hang around. When that wasn't working, we went into the local bigger hospital, and we had a brilliant urologist doctor there, Hannah Cottis, and she scanned him, went, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And then, within a day, we're up at the children's specialist hospital in a bigger city, up the road, about 100 miles up the road. And then it just super quick.
What was so at that point, and I know this was 10 years ago, but I imagine to a certain extent, there's days where you wake up and relive that moment, or it can still be vivid at times. What were you thinking, or what was the family thinking? Was it surprise, shock, fear, determination, all of the above? What was going through your head those first couple weeks as you were trying to figure out what was going on with Leo, and then at that moment that you got told that there was a cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, it was horror as much as anything. He had his cystoscopy, and the doctor came back. I can remember this very well. It's it's just there, and he said, it's cancer, and sort of, yeah, the noises that came out of Abby were just incredible. But we have an incredible family support system. And within that sort of 5-10 minutes of us just going, this can't be happening, we're on the phone. Keith and Janet, who are here today, came straight up. Her mum and stepdad flew straight. They were out in Kuala Lumpur, just on a stopover in Kuala Lumpur. Turned around, got on the plane, came straight back. Their brothers and sisters, everyone just rallied around to give us support. Yeah, it's a sort of place that you wouldn't wish on anyone. It's cancer in children is a not a great place to be. And we're on the 7th floor, which is the children's cancer floor at the Bristol Children's Hospital, and there was varying amounts of all distress. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at other people thinking, oh my goodness, this is sort of worse for them than it is for us, and for us it's sort of horrific. Mm-hmm. And on that 4th of February, the World Cancer Day, when they hooked him up for chemo for the first time, it was without a shadow of a doubt the worst time of my life. Mm-hmm.
I think I've heard parents of some of the other pediatric patients that we've treated talk about the fact that they wish it was happening to them. They see it happening to their child, and they say, I would give anything to not have this be happening to my child. Let me take this on.
For sure. No, absolutely. You would swap in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And so talk to me a little bit more about the treatment before you got to the United States. So you did have to do a surgery. So did you start with chemotherapy and then there was a surgery?
Yeah, I started with chemo. They did a cycle and then rescanned just to see whether they could control the spread of the cancer within the bladder. And they couldn't. They said it's still growing. And because of his age, they couldn't give him more of a dose. It would probably kill him. So they said we've got to take the bladder out, which is obviously a huge operation and has sort of long-lasting effects on other systems. And but there's no choice. Mm-hmm. So he went through a huge operation. I think Keith and Janet, who are here today, we were up in Bristol. We all went out while he was having surgery. We were just told to just to get away, and then he was in intensive care for some time. and there were various times when other systems were under a lot more stress. So it's pretty tricky, but that all settled down, and chemo resumed and was doing its job. And then they talked about the margins. So within the surrounding tissues to the bladder, there was a theoretical potential that it may have spread. As with like the chemo, it's sort of theoretical. It may be in the bloodstream. We have to poison your child.
Right.
But you do it. You don't ask why and whatever. You just get on with it, even though you know it's not great. So when they talked about the margins, they talked about radiotherapy. They said the best place to go would be to the States with for proton beam therapy.
And at the time, and this is obviously different today, but at the time, there was not a proton center in the United Kingdom. And so for patients like Leo that needed proton therapy or would benefit from proton therapy, you had to leave the country. And so you talked about that mindset of we need to do whatever it takes. There was never a question of should we leave the country to go get treatment.
No, so the NHS, it has its faults, but for kiddies medicine, it's second to none. It is free at the point of requirement, and we pay via our taxes, but it's a hugely different system to the one in the States, and they would pay for Leo's treatment, and one parent to go with him out to the States. So we raised money. I was off work at that point, so we had all those other stresses of how do we pay the mortgage, how do we do this, that, and the other. So we raised, the local community was fabulous and raised enough. More than enough. So we all flew out together alongside Keith and Janet, who are really our logistical support and fabulous. And I had time off work. Abby was off work. Hattie was 3.5 years old. We couldn't, we all wanted to be together. When we got to the States, the option was to stay in one of the hotels near the ProCure Centre. We didn't think that really suited all of us in one room.
Right.
So we upgraded and went to a local neighbourhood, and the ProCure Centre found us a lovely house in a superb little environment with a neighbourhood pool, and we rocked up at the pool, and obviously with our accents people were looking, and it was, Brits are quite skeptical about people being nice to them, and at first it was just really hard to sort of process. But everyone has a story and knows someone who's had cancer or know a child who's had cancer, and the people just took us on board. They supported us. They would feed us. They would drop beer at the door. It was just fabulous, fabulous time in regards to support. And then Abby and myself would go to the ProCure Centre every morning with Leo, and Keith and Janet would look after Hattie, and we'd plan nice things to do when Leo was well enough to do it.
What was that's a great way, I think that's a great way to describe the culture and the environment in Oklahoma, and especially the community that's kind of affiliated with or associated with the Proton Center. We really do try to become a big family and support each other, especially as we had so many families. I mean, you talked about the fact that at the time there were 10 other families from England that were over in Oklahoma City getting treatment. Tell me a little bit about that first day that you walked into the Proton Center, and it's a new facility, you're in a new country, you're meeting a bunch of new people. What was going through your head, and what were some of the things that you remember from those first couple days coming into the center?
Well, the first thing, and we still laugh about it now, and we checked it out straight away, was the sign saying no smoking and no guns.
Yeah.
So obviously for people from
Very Oklahoma.
the UK, it's all
Very
like,
Oklahoma.
wow,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
sort
We
of
have to
great.
remind people, leave your guns in the car. You can't bring them in. So.
And then as soon as you walk through that door, it's sort of this sanctuary of smiling people and kindness and support and hope. And then the system back then slightly different from now, because there was many children there, but Leo would always be first of the day because he was the youngest, and he had to be sedated for his scans and treatment. They would buddy them up with someone older, generally male, who was in there for prostate treatment. Well, we met his buddy was this lovely chap called Ron.
Okay.
And we're meeting him in a few days.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Which is great. And then we'd be there for about an hour. His treatment would be about 10 minutes. So we had to come back round, and we were looked after. So you start the day in a good way. He smiled at everyone. We'd take him through, leave him with the staff, walk off, Polly in tears. He was having a good time, it appeared. So that became home and family as well. The staff were incredible. And being at the graduation today, the sentiment hasn't changed. Everyone still feels exactly the same. The staff are there, and they just incredibly look after you so well.
Yeah, and so that's a good segue. Maybe let's talk a little bit about that. So part of the reason that you guys are back here today is so that Leo gets the opportunity to see where he was at for a period of time when he was younger, and just this experience that he's gone through. But also it's an opportunity to reconnect with some of the clinicians or prostate cancer patient Ron, who you're going to meet. And I thought it was really neat when two of the therapists, Shelly and Kim, came out to see you, Leo, and they talked about the fact that they used to fight over who got to carry you to the back because you were always smiling. And I think your dad just talked about that. But they, even 10 years later, they remembered you and have that fond memory of, even though it was a really difficult thing that you were going through, they grew to really love you as a baby and as a kid. And we still see that smile today. So that's great. So tell me a little bit for you, Leo, when you walked in the center today. I know you had just heard about it from a distance. What was it like for you walking into the Proton Center?
Well, it was sort of like heartwarming because I don't know what it was. But then all the people that knew me, that saw me when I walked in, they were so nice. And I was like, who are you? Who are you? I don't know you. But it's like, should I know them? But it's just like, I was like, I don't know. It was just so nice to meet all the people that had treated me, but I didn't know a clue who they were.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Leo. So what were some of the other things that stood out? Because you got a tour of the facility and you got to see the machine shop and see the nurses area and see the treatment room and see the anesthesia or sedation area. What were some of the other things that stood out to you as you walked through the center?
Oh, so I think the big one for me is when I walked into the place where I had my treatment, because the machine was so big, and it's bigger underground, is it? Like, how? It's massive, and it's just like, it was just so big for me, and I thought it was just going to be a little machine that just does loads of stuff and just doesn't. I didn't even know it spun me around.
That room that you're in, that you're talking about, the gantry room, so you talked about it being underground. So what you see when you walk in the room, that's just 1/3 of the size of that machine.
Yeah.
So it goes up 1 story above the room, and it goes down an entire story below the room. And that whole contraption, that whole gantry device weighs over 100 tons. And you talked about spinning it around you. We can actually rotate all of that weight around you. And did you see the table, the treatment table? where you would have been during treatment?
Yeah.
And so, and then you got to stay for the graduation
Yeah.
lunch. So tell me a little bit about that, because when you finished treatment 10 years ago, we would have had a similar graduation celebration, acknowledging and celebrating with the patients that were finishing treatment at that point in time.
Yeah.
What was it like for you seeing a graduation lunch today?
It was really nice because those people they would have been going through a lot, and just to know what it feels like. Well, I know what it feels like, but I just can't remember what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But to know what it feels like, or just to see what it feels like to finish your treatment, it's just really nice, because it's really quite rare to have cancer, and if you get it, it's quite sad on your family because there's a chance you can die. And for me, because I was a baby, I could have died when I was not even a year old. So I think it's just really nice to see them.
And that's amazing, Leo. So I think for you being there, these are patients that are just finishing treatment, and you've been out for 10 years now. I think it was really encouraging for the patients that are just finishing up treatment to see you doing so well 10 years post-treatment, because they're thinking, what is my life going to be like a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, or certainly 10 years from now. And so I think you talked about it was neat for you to walk in and see where you got treated. I think it was really, again, to use the word encouraging, for them to see somebody who was so far out from treatment and doing well. So we're grateful that you came in to encourage them. What are some of the other things that you'll take away from today just being at the center? What's maybe something else that you remember that stood out?
All the people were just so nice there. And they're just, like, when I was for lunch, all the helpers were just so nice as well. And just all the people there, they're just brilliant. And they're just really nice.
We have a fantastic team at the Proton Center here in Oklahoma City. We're really fortunate. And one of the things that we talk about is we smile a lot at the facility. And we smile not because we don't understand the gravity and the seriousness of what we're doing. We smile because we understand that. And the last thing that we need to do is bring more stress and more burden and more fear into the environment. So we'd rather take a different approach and say, you know what, this is a really, really difficult thing that all of these patients are having to go through and their families are having to go through. We're going to make the best of it while we're here. And again, I go back to what the two therapists said. You brought that smile in as a kid. And I think that's part of what's so inspiring for us working in oncology, is seeing kids come in and they're going through something so difficult and so challenging, and they just keep on trucking. They just keep on moving, and they don't let it faze them. And you really did that, even as a 10-month-old. So James, talk a little bit about what your communication has been with Leo, because obviously he doesn't remember going through treatment. When did you talk to him for the first time about the fact that he had gone through cancer treatment as a baby? Or how did you approach having those conversations with him?
I think it was a gradual process over several years, because Leo knew nothing else but having his urostomy bag, but knew it wasn't the same as everyone. But in those early years, just was fairly oblivious to the gravity of why he had it. And then I suppose over the years, prior to school, we started to introduce the idea that he had cancer, and we showed him lots of pictures of people, and this is what you've been through, and it's a very rare thing, and you're doing so well. And then he'd still have his scans at the hospitals to just a yearly, well, started off at 6 monthly scans and then up to yearly scans. Then you get to that 5 years where they sort of discharge him and the parents will go into meltdown because he's not getting regular sort of screening, because statistically he's doing really well and he doesn't need it. So over those sort of periods, then Leo would start to be a little bit more inquisitive and say, well, you know, when am I going to have my bag removed and things like that. And then he'd go to school, and then obviously other children would ask him questions. So over the sort of 5 years he's been at school, that's sort of ramped up. Leo's turning into a young man. He's asking more and more questions, and you know, Leo had a classmate who also had cancer, and so we did speak a lot more about it, and Leo was a huge support, and we would hopefully support for Charlie's lovely parents, and so it's just been a natural progression of really having to drip feed information. You know, he's 10, he's got lots of growing to do. We have a fabulous urologist back home at the Children's Hospital. He doesn't want to do anything until he's older, but he keeps him up to date with where he is at the moment and how well it works. And Leo manages so well. He embraces the fact that he's had it. He will show people his bag. He would just, you know, tell his peers about, you know, the sort of changes or the differences that he has, but equally he does everything that they do in regards to sports, education. You know, he gets on the stage, he sings, he acts. He's amazing. He's an amazing child. He's great at his sports, like his sister, and yeah, pleasure. He's a real pleasure to have as a son.
Well, and he's a great storyteller too. You've done a fantastic job today, Leo. Is this the first time that you've been on a podcast?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, you're a natural. I could see a career for you in this. It sounds like you have many talents, though. So what are I liked what your dad said about the fact that you aren't afraid to just embrace the experience that you've gone through. You're willing to talk about it, but it sounds like you're also using it as a tool or a mechanism to encourage other kids. Whether you talked about there's a classmate that is going through cancer or went through cancer, and maybe it's not cancer, maybe it's something else. So tell me a little bit about your mindset about how you're using what you've gone through to help other people.
Oh, well, if like older people than me, like my friend's mum had cancer, breast cancer. I don't know, is she still going through it, Sarah?
I think she's clear now.
She's clear, but and because I finished it when I was really young, and to have it so young is quite just, and it's just inspiring for people, and people just think that I'm a real inspiration, and people, for me, they also like the son and the two daughters of my friend's mum. They ran a run for all the people who have had cancer, and it's just, I think I inspire people, and I think also other people inspire me.
You do inspire people, Leo, and I saw that today at the luncheon, and I do genuinely mean that. It was an encouragement for you to be there, and don't ever stop doing that. So just to wrap up a little bit, and then we are going to get the privilege to talk to your sister and mom and grandparents as well. So you're here in Oklahoma for a couple of weeks. What are some other things that you're looking forward to doing while you're here in town?
Oh, so Fronttown City.
Okay.
Go to the zoo. Heard there's a baby elephant there. Topgolf. Restaurants. We've been to Whataburger.
Okay.
Me and Hattie are fragging Raising Cane's. I don't know why. we've just heard of it. We are having a street party.
Okay.
With some friends that we made back 10 years ago. My sister's going to the lower forces, and just loads of other stuff that there's just so much to do, and we've only got 2 weeks here, so I don't know how we're going to fit everything in, but I think we will.
If you do all that, that's an amazing 2 week. If you hit Raising Cane's, Whataburger, the zoo, a street party, museums, Frontier City, that's an amazing. That's a perfect 2 weeks in Oklahoma City. That's great. Well, I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to us while you guys are in town. It's great to see you, Leo. It's great to see you doing so well. And James, thank you for being so transparent and being willing to share. And especially being willing to share in such a vulnerable way that I know will be an encouragement to other people that hear this, that maybe are just starting along that journey, having a family member or a kid going through cancer treatment. So thank you guys so much.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.